I know what you're thinking. This isn't Gaelga Weekly. What's going on? This is Éist, one of the many member exclusive shows we have over on the membership Learn Irish Online on Patreon. It's going out as part of the free week this week, so to run you through. Monday we had a free episode of a Gastro Grouse. That is a video-based show, so it's over on the Learn Irish Online YouTube. Gaelga Weekly has come out on Tuesday this week instead of Wednesday, because that's when it comes out on Patreon, and it's come out as well with a link to the PDFs with the most challenging words. Éist coming out today. LIO is going to be coming out later in the week again. That's a video-based one, so that's going to be on YouTube. So please enjoy breaking down a few different clips of spoken Irish, and hopefully you'll get something out of it. If you want to sign up for the membership afterwards, patreon.com/Learn Irish Online. Link is in the description of this podcast anyway. Search Learn Irish Online on the Patreon app. Or if you don't want to, or you don't feel like you can afford to, then that's absolutely fine as well. Thank you very much for listening, for tuning in to Gaelga Weekly, to Éist, and everything we do, and for supporting us, even just by listening, even without paying anything. You help us create more content for people learning Irish across the world and make that content better and more accessible to more people, so more people can speak, understand, write, and read to a higher level in the language. Fáilte ras week Éist Arís Gurmí the Magov Mar is Canach as Tunal Isteach. This one is going out for free on Spotify, YouTube, and a few other places, as well as part of the free week on the Learn Irish Online membership. All of the membership content from July 7th until July 13th is going out for free, so you can get a taster of what you always get as part of the membership. So if you've not listened to Éist before, pretty simple. We listened to two different clips of spoken Irish. Normally the first one a bit easier than the second. We try and cover younger speakers, older speakers, different types of Irish, different levels in the language, probably more importantly different dialects. Today, for example, the first clip is going to be more so Munster speaker, but not a native Munster speaker, and just try and cover as many things as possible to help it make it easier for you to understand the language much better. Not just understand what's being said, but why it's being said the way it is. We listen to the clip. I normally play it twice, but I encourage you to listen as many times as possible. Try and get as much of it as you can, and then I go through it line by line and break it down. So let's get straight into it and not waste any more time. Clip number one today is from a girl called Aisling, and you don't need too much context here in terms of what she is talking about. As she was on the podcast Gaelga Nish, we're just going to hear from her. We're not going to hear from Sean and Will Kieran, the host, and she's going to be talking a little bit about the opportunities that Irish can give you. Now, she's not going to focus too much on Irish in the part we're going to listen to. She gets on later, I suppose, in this section to talk about that. But we're just listening to around the first 25, 26 seconds of it, okay? So talking a little bit about opportunities and almost in a broader sense in life, the way opportunities work. And then she goes off and tells a little anecdote. I'm going to give you a few new words. If you really want to test yourself and don't want these new words or a few things that are going to come up here, then you can skip, let's say, about 40 seconds ahead in this podcast. So I'll give you a chance to do that. So just four little things. Ina, as I would say, for surprise. One of the two words for surprise, Ina or Intas. She's going to use Ina, but pronounce it Una. Una. Same way they'd pronounce Untuch for Intuch in Munster. Vias, don't forget, in Munster Irish, they'll fuse that past tense form. So Vias is I was. Again, done loads of stuff on that, and you can check out the comprehension course over on Learn Irish Online website if you're unsure how that works. So Vias for I was, Rinnis for I did. That's going to come up a few times here. Maastrucht for a master's, as in a master's you would do college. And finally, a root of a verb, bra, B-R-A-I-T-H, doesn't only mean depend, it can also mean feel. Okay, so those are going to come up here. Hopefully those will help you out. So I'm going to play it twice with about 10-second gap in between the two. But again, I always encourage you guys to listen as many times as you can. Keep on listening until you get to the point where you think, I could listen again and again and again, and I still wouldn't be able to get any more of this. I think for a lot of people, that'll be 5 or 6 times roughly, and then we'll go through the breakdown. But I'm just going to play it twice on this recording of the podcast that you're listening to. And we'll survey. A 3, a 2, a hen.
Rud a derm le dtíine anna vinnig ná bheith únairt na deisina a thugann deisina eile duit. So nu bhí stéanamh máisteachta ar an aisteáin bhí posta gom le cólacht ar lína a bhúna an gailing basically agus fíorm kind of rudí in over YouTube do fáilimóí. Agus ag an am le bheith omlan fíornach nar hanseil am an éair like bhís ag feigart ceisina rasgurh na ceisina céanna tachtníos an tamar fád agus just níor bhrehas gur thug sé aon dom, right? Rud a derm le dtíine anna vinnig ná bheith únairt na deisina a thugann deisina eile duit. So nu bhí stéanamh máisteachta ar an aisteáin bhí posta gom le cólacht ar lína a bhúna an gailing basically agus fíorm kind of rudí in over YouTube do fáilimóí. Agus ag an am le bheith omlan fíornach nar hanseil am an éair like bhís ag feigart ceisina rasgurh na ceisina céanna tachtníos an tamar fád agus just níor bhrehas gur thug sé aon dom.
Okay, that's the clip. Again, feel free to go back and listen as many times as you want until you really feel like I could listen again and again and it won't get any more out of it. You might have understood 2 words in that full thing and nothing else. You might have understood absolutely everything and just missed on 1 word. It doesn't matter. And again, I say, okay, the first clip in the show is always easier than the second clip. Normally a bit of a higher standard of Irish in the second clip, or just higher standard, I mean tougher to even just understand, basically. But what we're also looking at with this is just trying to get better. Okay, so again, it doesn't matter whether you understood everything or nothing there. The main thing is in 10 minutes time, when I've done the breakdown for this clip, that you feel like you can understand it better and you feel like you've learned a few things. And that's the case with all the shows on the membership on Learn Irish Online. So let's break it down line by line and see what comes up. A lot of interesting stuff in this first clip.
Rud a derm le dtíine anna vinnig.
Rud a derm le dtíine anna vinnig. Rud a derm le dtíine anna vinnig. So rud, a thing, a derm le dtíine. Okay, so a derm, that I say. A lot of people forget the present tense for a say because it tends to come up more in the past tense, you know, dúirt mé, dúirt sí. So again, der in the present, although in Connacht often we'll say dearan mé. In this case, it's fused, which they do a lot in Munster, the Tom, Dainam, and so on. So it's not going to make a difference in that respect. So rud a derm le dtíine, to people. Okay, so again, dúirt sé lum, he said to me. So if I'm not naming me or you and I'm just saying whatever the people, the group, the president, whatever it might be, I'll say le and then into the next bit, naming. Okay?
Rud a derm le dtíine anna vinnig ná.
Rud a derm le dtíine anna vinnig, very often. Okay, so minnic for often or gominnic, and then anna vinnig, so the on forcing the H onto the adjective. So something I say to people very often. And notice there as well, it's not ger the. So with inish, it would be the, inish dum, you know, in she and she ditch, she tells you. Both aber, which is the root, the irregular, the verb say is supposed to tell, it'll always be let, dúirt sé lum, he said to me, or he told me.
Anna vinnig ná bheith únairt na.
Bheith úna earth, you would be surprised. Okay, so tá iontas erm, I would normally say, but I can also say tá íona erm if you listen to the few new words I gave before the clip, or the words that may have been tricky. Again, in Munster, a lot of these are pronounced un. Okay, un. So let's say untach for great instead of intach. So same thing here, una, ADH, and that little U sound at the end, which isn't too typical of Munster as well. And a lot of younger speakers like herself and even myself, kind of a bit of mix of the dialects or mix of Standard Irish and Munster, Standard Irish and Connacht, whatever else it might be. Okay, but here she says una for surprise. Okay, so bheith, that's just the mochanílik. So tá intas erm, or let's say in this case tá una erm. I'm surprised. So bheith una earth. So that's just changing your verb to be, changing your erm at the end to earth. And there you have it. Okay, you would be surprised.
Bheith únairt na deisina a thugann deisina eile duit.
Na deisina a thugann deisina eile ditch. Let's listen to that again.
Na deisina a thugann deisina eile duit.
Okay, and one thing interesting there, if you hear me pronounce opportunity, I'm going to say najeishna. The D is a really soft D sound. It's like a J sound in English. Okay, in the same way, it's a jacker for difficult. Okay, je for of, whatever else it might be. So jeishna. In Munster, and that comes down to the DST rule, which I've gone on about a lot of different stuff before. The idea of if the D, S, or T is on a broad vowel, it's going to be a kind of sharp pronunciation. Examples that would be dum, soch, and one with the T would be tá. let's say, like we just talked about there, tá ínta term, so normal T sharp sound. And then if it's on the slender, if it's on an I or an E, it's going to be a slurred sound, shin, sho for the S, for the T, chin, as in the word for sick. And then here you'd have deisina. But in Munster, often even if that D, S or T is on a slender vowel, it'll still have maybe not a complete sharp sound, but more of a sharp sound. So here it's not deisina, it's more so deisina.
Hogan deisina eile duit.
Okay, so you'd be surprised the opportunities that other opportunities give you.
So nu bhí stéanamh máisteachta.
So nuair bhís ag déanamh mástreachta,
So nu bhí stéanamh máisteachta.
Okay, so what's going on there? Nuair bhís, when I was, remember bhís in Munster, for I was, bhís for you were, bhí sé, bhí she, same thing, and then bhímer, bhíver, and bhíadir. So those fused forms in the past tense. We don't want to say bhís may, the may is included in the bhís. Nuair bhís, when I was, ag déanamh mástreachta, doing a master. So again, master is one of our little new words from before, if you listen to that. Why is it mástreachta instead of mástrucht? It's because after the continuous, we should technically have the genitive. Again, if you're more so a beginner, do not be worrying about this. In the 2012 update to An Caid San Ufagul, which is the standard, the official standard of Irish, a lot of the importance was removed away from the idea of having to use the genitive after the continuous. But traditionally and technically, it should be used. Okay, Xeno na Hibra doing the work instead of Xeno on upper. But again, if you said Xeno Maastricht, no one would even bat an eyelid. If I was doing this, Éist and she had said Xeno Maastricht, I wouldn't have even brought it up. Well, she sort of said this. It's only a very small technical mistake. Something, again, focus on, if there's more bigger stuff, like you don't know le, for example, off by heart, you don't know it's lum, lat, lesh, lehi, and so on. Focus on that much more so than something like this. Okay, priorities. What are we going to put our time into when we're practicing? The stuff we're going to use more often. The stuff that's more important, that's more critical, is a word I like to use a lot. Okay, so this isn't a critical mistake if she did make it.
So nu bhí stéanamh máisteachta an astracháin.
An astracon. So when I was doing masters on translation, we do that when we're talking about studying. We often use the air. To make dental slads here, air on Noelga. I'm studying Irish. I'm doing study on the Irish. And here, when I was doing a master's on the translation, astragon for translation.
The an astracháin. Bhí
postagum. I had a job, and again in Munster, the egg form pronounced more like that. A gum, a gut, as opposed to agum or anything like that.
Le cólach their lína.
Le cólach their lína with a company online.
Cólach their lína a bhúnan gailing basically.
A bhúnan goelga, basically, I think she says after. So a bhúnan, that is just the verb teach. So moon would be the root, moonan, present tense, and then the A for a company that teaches, that's going to force the little H on rud a yenan may, and so on.
Bhúnan gailing basically, like Spherum kind of ruddy in over YouTube.
Virum kind of ruddy a yano or YouTube. So Virum I had to. So again, thought and we can just change that back. Could be V in the past tense, and then V Urhu, V Nadini, whatever the people had to, they had to. So just remembering the base, thought in this case, and being able to change it around really easily in terms of your own speaking. For understanding, Virum I had to.
Kind of ruddy in over YouTube, the Fowlamori.
Ruddy yano or YouTube, the Fowlamori. So I had to do stuff on YouTube for learners. Fowlamori, Fowlamori, whatever way you want to pronounce it, that's both fine.
YouTube, the Fowlamori. Agus ag an am leve.
Agus ag an am at the time.
Agus ag an am leve omlan fearnach near Hangelum.
So letting it changes hun bheith fearnach, to be honest. We could also say hun bheith machanta or hun an earna or raw. A few different ways to say to be honest. And again, if you're thinking, okay, how do I find that out? You, instead of always kind of listening to a podcast and hoping that might come up, again, go to folklore.ie, just type in to be honest, even if it's not one word and it won't have a specific entry for that because it's not a single word. What you can do then is go down to the sample sentences where to be honest comes up, and you'll see how much hun bheith machanta is used, hun bheith fearnach, and hun earna or raw is used. Okay, and you say, okay, it's more so used this one if I'm talking about this, and so on.
Omlan fearnach near Hangelum in Echer, like.
Near Hanselum in Einchor. In Einchor is the Munster way of saying a churbe. Okay, so here it's just going to be at all. Near Hanselum or churbe, I didn't like it at all. So near Hanselum, again, that's really important to be able to use it good yourself, because this matlam is great. For us matlam, I like it. But normally when we're talking about like in real conversation, it ends up being something more like this. Like past tense, I didn't like it, adding something on afterwards as well, at all. So therefore, we need to be able to use the tatan. It didn't appeal with me in any way, in Einchor at all. Okay, so I didn't like it at all.
Live online fear nach Angela Manecher like these figures question
Visig fragart kestana. So I was answering questions. So again, the Vias there for I was.
figures question Rasgrave the question can talk
Rahas. So brat, the root for feel, again, can mean depend as well, but it can also mean feel, just like muhi. So vrahas, I felt, and brat tends to be used a bit more in Munster. Vrahas, I felt.
Rasgrave the question can talk and hammer.
Okay, a lot going on here, probably toughest part of it. Vrahas, ground the keshtana kana, ag chachtanis. So I felt that the same questions were coming up.
Rasgrave the question can talk and hammer fad.
And hammer fad. So that they were coming up the whole time. Dinis, I know, is a bit tricky, so you're thinking Éist, that's like she's down, but when it's coming up, imagine the A is like from, so it's coming up from a down position. So therefore it's an Éist. That can be a bit tricky, but if we said there, again, you know, Graushid, ag taxus, Arís, that wouldn't be a critical error by any means.
And hammer fad, I guess.
And hammer fad the whole time.
I guess just near for has Gerhoksha in rhythm, right?
Near Rahas, gur hug sé ein rudum. So near Rahas, I didn't feel, again, the sharp S at the end, near Rahish would be you didn't feel, near Rahas, gur hug sé ein rudum, that it gave me anything. Okay, perfect. Any questions on that? Just leave it down in the comments below. Guys, but let's have another listen and see if it's a bit easier now the third time. Hopefully it will be. Again, you might listen to this now and think, I still don't get a lot of it. But do you get more than previously? That's all I care about. That means you made progress, you're closer to where you want to get to. Keep on doing that every day, you'll be fine.
Rud derm ledina an vinnig no weg unert na deisne hogan deisne elle dit. So nu vi stin maastruchte nastruin vi posta gom le kolach der line a vunen gailing basically exfirm kind of ruddy in over YouTube de Falmori. Agus ag an am leve online fear nach near Angela Manecher like vis figures question Rasgrave the question can I talk and hammer fad agus just near for has Gerhoksha in rhythm, right?
Right, so hopefully that makes more sense now, but that was just the warm-up for clip number 2, which is going to be quite tricky, I must say. Probably out of the 40 or so episodes of Éist we've done, this is going to be one of the trickier clips. But then again, it's far from impossible. It's just quite fast, even more so than accents or dialects or anything like that. So, just to give you a bit of context, this is from the show Tú Sáta on Radio na Gaeltachta, and they're doing a thing at the moment called Leich na Noil. Leich na Noil kind of mean the hero or the star of the Gaels, you know, the kind of Irish speakers or promoters of Irish culture and so on. So they're looking at different people, mainly from the 20th century, who are massively influential, whether it's in language or in music and so on, and kind of saying who was the best one, okay, almost the figure of the century or whatever. Okay, so they've just come back from an ad break and the host is going to chat a little bit about, well, a specific person, I suppose, in regards to, again, who they're going to be talking about today, one of the little kind of nominees for this, and also giving a bit of detail about the kind of competition or the campaign in general at the start. And just giving a small bit of biography about the person. I'll tell you who the person is. I mean, it's not going to help you too much. Mórtín O'Kine, okay, from Galway, from Connemara, who was a big, well, actually, I'm not going to tell you what he did because the speaker is going to tell us a little bit about some of the things he did throughout the 20th century. Okay, so a few new words or things that'll come up here that are tricky. I'd recommend, unless you're at a very high level, to probably listen to these because these will almost definitely be new for most people listening. And these are in order of the way they come up to make it a bit easier. Fuilán shoal is when something is kind of in full flow or it's full steam ahead. So, Tá Comórtas, Fuilán shoal, so the competition is kind of full steam ahead or it's underway or anything like that. Or Lauriha is going to mean spokespeople, or Lauriha, or Lauri would be the singular. Stocharacht Ayenu, Stocaireacht. Stocharacht Ayenu is very tough to translate. To blow someone's trumpet, but it's almost like to promote, I'm sure there must be a word. If I was, for example, canvassing for a politician, I'm kind of Stocharacht ar son, kind of I'm blowing their trumpet for them, I'm promoting them or kind of telling people how great they are. Again, how that'll fit better once you actually hear it as part of this little audio file. Then we have mial as a root of a verb, but here it's going to be avyalu. Again, pronunciation might be different depending on dialect, but I'm just going to give it to you how I would say it. That's to attract, to allure, to capture. Okay, to attract, let's say there. And then a few more. Ariatur A. So that's with the present seer over here. Ariatur A for the I-R, I for the T-E-A-R. That's going to mean he's included, or in this case, to make it easy for you, he is considered. He is considered as whatever, one of the best. Okay. Alt, A-I-L-T, that's just the plural of articles. Again, that might not come up just alt by itself, but it might be part of a bigger thing, or the spelling might be changed a little bit because what comes before it, even pronunciation, but that's the general thing there, A-I-L-T. So again, your soft T at the end, like we talked about before, alts for articles. And then the final one, the final verb is filsigh, F-O-I-L-S-I-G-H, for publish. Okay, so let's have a listen to this, guys. I'll play it again twice for you, but listen to this one a good few times. See, can you pick up any little bits? Most people listening to this in terms of levels, most people on the membership from the levels I know people have there won't be able to get too much. This is just to be honest. If you were able to get everything here, you wouldn't be listening to this podcast because your Irish would be super, super good already and you wouldn't probably be looking to improve it. Okay, so let's see what comes up. Again, just come back from an ad break talking a little bit about this competition and the new kind of person who's being mentioned today.
Tá ar gomórtas leach na gael fi lán seoil agus chun carúlih bhór ginine dhéanamh beag or láirithe agins na seachtaí machróin chun stocracht ginine bhar gachta den déineoir atá ar an ngearliste agus iad den bhíocht bhór bhótaí leach na gael a bhela agus chun tosnú inneomh le Martin O'Cain bhfuil bescríbhnóir gailige as chunamara an cainach a rugu inéidir sa sé agus áí tríoch in just na scríbhnóirí próis is mó is starlí tríoch na nua gailige. Fáil siag 3 uair agus 6 bhailúchan gearcéalt leis chumála hailt, aistrucháin, leachtaí, béad is a bhalig sé hain agus go leor eile. Tá ar gomórtas leach na gael fi lán seoil agus chun carúlih bhór ginine dhéanamh beag or láirithe agins na seachtaí machróin chun stocracht ginine bhar gachta den déineoir atá ar an ngearliste agus iad den bhíocht bhór bhótaí leach na gael a bhela agus chun tosnú inneomh le Martin O'Cain bhfuil bescríbhnóir gailige as chunamara an cainach a rugu inéidir sa sé agus áí tríoch in just na scríbhnóirí próis is mó is starlí tríoch na nua gailige. Fáil siag 3 uair agus 6 bhailúchan gearcéalt leis chumála hailt, aistrucháin, leachtaí, béad is a bhalig sé hain agus go leor eile.
Tricky, right? Far from easy, I'm sure. But let's just break down line by line and see what comes up. Again, with a lot of these guys, if you saw it written down in transcript, you'd actually get most of it. Again, with Irish, it's the same words coming up over and over again. It's just the pace of it, getting it on your ear. The dialects, even though the dialectical stuff doesn't really come up too much here, it's more so the pace with this one rather than anything. So, let's see what comes up.
Tá ar gomórtas leach na gael.
Tá ar gomórtas leach na. So our leach na competition is
Tá ar gomórtas leach na gael fi lán seoil.
Fi lán seoil. So it's full steam ahead, it's in full flow, let's say. Okay, it's underway. So our leach na competition is in full flow, it's underway.
Gomórtas leach na gael fi lán seoil agus chun carúlih.
Agus chun carúlih. So to help you or to help ye, to help you guys.
Fi lán seoil agus chun carúlih bhór ginine dhéanamh.
We're ginu a yenu, or yenuv, as he says. So to make your decision. So kinna for a decision, kinna a yenu. So again, normally, like a lot of stuff in Irish, we won't say the verb decide, even if it may come up in the dictionary. Often we'll just say to make a decision. So we'll use one of the irregular verbs or a really common verb, even if it's regular, such as cur, chormeg leach, ergwin egan. So again, we're not saying I called someone, I put a call on someone. We're not saying I visited someone, I gave a visit on someone, and so on.
So
the were, again, is the one that a lot of people forgot. So mo, do, a, ar, and then were, B-H-U-R, for your, as in your plural possession, your coats, or whatever it might be. That forces an uru, such as all the kind of plural ones do. Let's say their boat would be a mod, or their decision, a ginu. So that's the same thing. Your decision to do. So in other words, to make your decision. Big. So that's more so the Munster pronunciation, of what verb do you think that might be? That's going to be the verb to be in the future. So by me, beg mate, we can also say again, finishing on more. So the consonant sound always in Munster rather than leaning towards the open vowel sound that you'll hear in Connacht and Ulster more often.
Ginne Yenov, big or Laurie against the Shachtnimach.
By or Lauritha a Gwyn, and a Gwyn again. So he's slightly leaning towards Munster-ish, even though he's definitely not a native Munster speaker. So we'll have speakers with us. Okay, so again, Talmud Tragam, this is the exact same thing, just by or Lauritha a Gwyn. We will have speakers.
Or Laurie against the Shachtnimach Rowan.
So the Shachtani amach Rowan in the weeks out in front of us, in other words, in the next few weeks. Okay, Rowan, such as Falter wrote before you. So again, this is all based off stuff that you already probably know, or stuff that comes up pretty early on in your time learned language. It's not like there's a million different words being used here that might be new, especially with the ones I gave you beforehand. But it's just about thinking how, let's say, wrote, false wrote, okay, that's before you, so how that can change to different things.
Or Laurie against the Shachtnimach Rowan. Hun Stockrucht Ginnever Gach.
Hun Stockrucht the to canvas, let's just call it that. To canvas for.
Hun Stockrucht Ginnever Gachte, den Denyor.
Gachtene. So to canvas for each one, every person of the 10. Zetnor, so we're counting people here.
Gachte, den Denyor atá ar.
Den Zetnor of the 10, atá ar, dash R on R, tougher in English than is in Irish.
Den Denyor atá ar Njarliste.
Njarliste, so Gjarliste, the base word, just because it's R for our, same word or same pronunciation, at least in English, are possessive. That forces an arrow, so it's the N on the G. So Gjarliste for shortlist.
Liste. Agus iad den Viert vor.
Agus iad den Viert as or while. So again, the August, a lot of people think it always means and, but when it's August, and then we have the doer of the action straight after. So instead of August tá siad den Viert, just August iad den Viert means while or as. We use it in English a lot without even thinking about it in Ireland. So I was out there working and you was home in the bed. Okay, so I was out there working and you was home in the bed, and then straight into the person who was doing the action, the person who was in the bed. So it's not and at the same time you were in the bed or anything like that, and you were in the bed. Okay, so while or as. Okay, so as they're trying.
Agus iad den Viert vor volti lecht na réil avale.
Okay, so this is a bit tricky. So agus iad den Viert were volti. Okay, so as they are trying to, we're voti, but that's the noun, and then we have the infinitive structure afterwards, such as, again, take simple example, this is just the same example with different words, on ober ayenu, to do the work. So here it's we're voti,
Agus iad den Viert vor volti lecht na réil avale.
We're voti lechten Wales, that's just an adjective basically on the votes. So your lechten Wales, which is the name of the competition, votes, a value to capture or to attract, or to draw in your Lechten Whale votes.
Lechten Whale avale. Agus van tosnu injov le Martin O'Kine.
Okay, so the on tosnu injo, or njo as he says, le Martin O'Kine.
Avale. Agus van tosnu injov le Martin O'Kine. Will beschreven nor geilige.
Okay, so well, B-H-U-E-L, the filler word like we'd have in English. Well, I don't know. So same thing there.
Le Martin O'Kine. Will beschreven nor geilige as Connemara.
Well, beschreven nor geilige as Connemara.
In
Chainach. Okay, so firstly, start from the end here. On Chainach, that's done probably, I think, more so in Connemara than other places, but it's done a bit in Irish where you take the surname and put an on before it and then basically add an ACH. So I remember reading a book a few years ago by someone whose surname was the Poyer, D-E, and then P-A-O-R, new word. And he was referred to sometimes in the book as on Prerok. Okay? So just add that ACH on the end. It's a very tough translation to English. It's like the close things with nationalities. Okay, so I can say someone is Argentinian, or I can say the Argentine, or the Spaniard, or something like that. It's almost the same thing. So on Chainach, just add the ACH down. Okay, we could just say O'Kine as well. We certainly do not have to use this. But again, I always say you can control what you say, so you don't have to learn how to say this yourself. Unless you're at a really high level and you want to broaden out, having different ways of saying things and sounding more fluent and so on. But you can control what other people say, so you need to be able to understand whatever comes up.
Le Martin O'Kine will beschreven nor geilige as Connemara in Chainach.
Okay, so let's just imagine it's O'Kine at the end, easier. Beschreven nor Gaelga as Connemara, A. O'Kine. So O'Kine was a writer, an Irish language writer from Connemara.
In Chainach, Arugu in Nedig Sashay.
Arugu, Nejeg is Sashay. that was born in 1906.
ar go in éidir sa sé, agus áí trí a chuine just na
Agus a réitar é, and he's considered, or he's included, he is considered, translates better here.
agus áí trí a chuine just na scríbnóirí prós is mó
Mar chunne de na scríbhneoirí prós as one of the people of, let's say, one of the righteous, we could translate it, even though we have dinner there, we wouldn't have it in English. You could do it both ways, as Gaelga. But one of the scríbhneoirí prós in English would be prose writers.
chuine just na scríbnóirí prós is mó is starlí tríocht na nua réige.
Is Mo, so one of the biggest prose writers
Prós is mó is starlí tríocht na nua réige.
is there literacht na nua Gaelga, okay? In the history of the new Irish literature, okay? So nua Gaelga, so modern Irish, let's say, would be the best translation in English. So the literature of modern Irish.
Starlí tríocht na nua réige. Fá siag trí orscéil agus sé bhailúchan gearcéalt leis.
Okay, so that's a bit trickier. So what's going on there? So we have file C for publish, and then lesh at the end. So we know it's done by him. Le normally used for by. There's a lot of ways we could phrase this sentence. Aaron le Adele is just an example there of how the by is used for most things when it's by. In English, it's going to be le. But then what's the bit in the middle? So what did he publish?
Fá siag
Or what was published by him even?
trí orscéil agus sé.
3 Orscale. Orscale is going to be a novel. So 3
Fá
novels.
siag trí orscéil agus sé bhailúchan gearcéalt leis.
She Voluchan, so 6 collections. Okay, Voluchan is going to be collections. Again, or a collection by itself even. And then if you look at Balu, you see that inside. That's the verb or the verb noun for collect. I make Balu, Mafashti on skull, whatever it might be. It's funny to think that collecting my kids from school is then connected to, let's say, a collection of short stories here. But it is, so it's the same stuff coming up over and over again. If you can learn the most common stuff that comes up, the most common 500, 1,000 words, the simpler stuff, it's not simple, but simpler stuff, then once you have, I suppose, your mindset up in the right way in terms of the way you think about the language and structure the language, this stuff becomes easier because you can work backwards. So Shay Volucon, so always after counting, we want to keep the noun in singular, so we're not going to add anything on. But we are going to add a H because 2 till 6, 7 to 10 rule that I've talked about before. Again, head up to the glossary here on the membership and click on the videos in relation to counting and numbers to hear more about the 2 till 6, 7 to 10 rule.
Orscéil agus sé bhailúchan gearcéalt leis.
Garskelta, so 6 collections of short stories. So again, we have Falchi at the start, the Lesh at the end. So those were published by him, passive.
Gearcéalt leis chumála hailt.
Kumaila Heils. So again, Eilsh is the way he pronounced it. Because the le before to separate the vowels, he puts a H at the start as well. So Kumala Heils, Kovma, as well as Eils, what did we say was beforehand? Articles. Okay, as well as articles.
Chumála hailt. Astrucháin.
Astragon translations.
Cháin. Leachtaí.
Leachti, anything to do with Leachti might be. It's not one of the ones I gave you beforehand. It's going to mean lectures.
The béidir sa bhailú sé héin agus
Religious is tough. It's going to be folklore, okay? Folklore in English.
the béidir sa bhailú sé héin agus
Valig Shahin. So folklore that he collected himself.
sé héin agus go leor eile.
Agus Glorella and plenty else. Okay, that's tricky, guys, especially when I'm breaking it up and stuff. You lose the flow of it a bit. Let's listen to the full thing. I'm going to play the full thing twice for you, actually, and then we'll wrap up the podcast.
Tá ar gomórtas leach na gael fi lán seoil agus chun carú liv vor ginine dhéanamh beag or laurithe a gins na seachtnaí machróin chun stockracht ginine vor gachta den denúir atá ar an ngearliste agus iad denhíocht vor voltaí leach na gael a bhela agus chun tosnú inniuh le Martin O'Cain bhfuil bescríbhnóir gailige as Connemara in Cainach a rugu in éidir sa sé agus áí trí a chuine just na scríbhnóirí prós is mó is starlí tríocht na nua gailige. Fá siag trí orscéil agus sé bhailúchan gearcéalt leis chumála hailt, astrucháin, leachtaí, béidir sa bhailú sé héin agus go leor eile. Tá ar gomórtas leach na gael fi lán seoil agus chun carú liv vor ginine dhéanamh beag or laurithe a gins na seachtnaí machróin chun stockracht ginine vor gachta den denúir atá ar an ngearliste agus iad denhíocht vor voltaí leach na gael a bhela agus chun tosnú inniuh le Martin O'Cain bhfuil bescríbhnóir gailige as Connemara in Cainach a rugu in éidir sa sé agus áí trí a chuine just na scríbhnóirí prós is mó is starlí tríocht na nua gailige. Fá siag trí orscéil agus sé bhailúchan gearcéalt leis chumála hailt, astrucháin, leachtaí, béidir sa bhailú sé héin agus go leor eile.
Okay, Gurmilamad as Shin for the two speakers. Always great to be able to listen to different dialects, different accents, different, younger versus older speakers, and so on. Because again, We don't just want to be able to understand one person and always listen to the same podcast in Irish. We want the idea of if we get in a conversation with someone, it doesn't matter whether they're a native speaker from Ulster or someone who's learned Munster Irish as a kind of second language afterwards at school or even after school, we want to be able to understand them and not to be worried about what type of dialect or level of Irish they might speak. That is it for this week on Éist, Arís, guys. I hope you did enjoy the podcast. And again, if you're listening for free on Spotify or on YouTube, all other 40, 41, however many episodes of Éist are available just like this over on the Patreon membership, patreon.com/Learn Irish Online, or look up Learn Irish Online on the Patreon app. Gurmín na mágah as a bheith éisteacht leis an show, le roir mo libh, le cúna dé, an lua ar fad, slán agus bannacht.